are back here on the GSMC Football Podcast. And we are back here on the GSMC Football Podcast. And for the final. Back here on the GSMC Football Podcast. And we are back here on the GSMC Football Podcast. And for the final.
Keep yourself in the loop of everything football on the Golden State Media Concepts Football Podcast. The latest news on and off the field, be it college football, Big Ten, SEC, Big 12, Pac-12, ACC to the NFL. We've got you covered. Listen to the Golden State Media Concepts Football Podcast.
And welcome everybody to another edition of the GSMC Football Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. As always, I'm your host, Kenneth Grunfelder, and it's great to have you guys here on this Monday, June 17th. We have a lot to talk about on the show today. Before I get into that, just want to remind you guys, as always, to tip or donate, get your comments recognized, make sure to go to the following link. That is gsmcpodcast.net. Again, that really helps the show, makes the show more interactive between myself, the host, and you guys, the viewers. Again, that is gsmcpodcast.net. And as always, it is displayed on the ticker at the bottom of the show segment down below. So I hope everybody had a good weekend. I hope everybody had a good Father's Day. So let's get into what we are going to discuss for today. So we're going to talk about T. Higgins signing the franchise tag with the Bengals. So that's encouraging for them, that at least they're going to get him to show up, and he's at least going to play the 2024 season with the franchise tag. So we'll get into that, the impact of that. Then in the second part of the show, I will continue my schedule breakdowns. Today we will be doing the New York Jets schedule, so I will get into that. Then in the third part of the show, talk about some comments made by Tank Dell on the Texans, him talking about how he feels like they have a target on their back, so we'll get into that as well. We'll talk about T.J.Watt, talking about his future and, talking about retirement. Not like he's going to retire after this year, but just, kind of, getting into that as well. So I'll get into what he had to say. And then we'll talk about another Jets topic. We'll talk about Sauce Gardner defending Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers not being at minicamp. That stirred up a bunch of criticisms and, some people defending him and saying it's not big of a deal. So I just wanted to get into that as well. So with that being said now, let's get into the first topic, which is talking about T. Higgins signing the franchise tag. So I know that T. Higgins has been a topic of conversation a lot this offseason. He's been one of the biggest topics. Well, I shouldn't say one of... Well, he has been, like I said, a topic of conversation this offseason because, between him and Brandon Ayuk looking for a new deal and, Dak Prescott looking for a new deal, quarterbacks and receivers really looking for new deals, he's been one of the biggest names. And just because he did sign the franchise tag. Now, this is encouraging for the Bengals. Now, I just want to get out of the way, though, that this does not mean that he's going to be with the Bengals long term. It just could mean for this year. But like I said, I just wanted to get that out of the way. But having him for the 2024 season is huge because they lost Tyler Boyd in free agency. They did go and draft a receiver, of course, and he's probably going to end up Jermaine Burton. He's probably going to end up being T. Higgins' replacement. And T. Higgins is eventually going to leave and go somewhere else and get a long-term deal elsewhere. But yeah, this is kind of like, the Bengals' last shot, at least with T. Higgins. Because, Jamar Chase is going to have to get paid at some point. They're going to prioritize that. Joe Burrow now has company with Trevor Lawrence being the highest paid quarterback, in terms of, annual salary, being paid $55 million a year. So you got him set. But, yeah, now you got to pay Jamar Chase. And the Bengals are not going to have, two receivers, making big money, against the salary cap. They're just not. It just doesn't seem like that's going to end up happening. T. Higgins has a number and they have a number. But it doesn't seem like that's going to end up happening, where they're going to meet in the middle and T. Higgins is going to be around. But T. Higgins is, he's not a top 10 receiver, but, I guess, top 15 maybe. But he is, he's one of the best number twos, because that's what he is. He can be a number one on teams, but he is one of the best number two wide receivers in the NFL, because obviously the number one receiver on the team is Jamar Chase, and that's why the Bengals, it seems like they're prioritizing signing him to a long-term deal over T. Higgins, but also because of what I just said. They don't want to have two receivers making big money, and on top of that, you have your quarterback, because you also have to, address other needs elsewhere. And, if you're paying two wide receivers big money, yeah, it's going to be kind of difficult to address other needs with your team. And that's, part of the reason why they cut bait with Joe Mixon and they brought in Zach Moss on a cheaper deal. You have Chase Brown still on his rookie contract. So you got, the running back position is not making that much money. But, yeah, that's just how I look at it. I could be completely wrong, but yeah, it just seems like they're prioritizing Chase and T. Higgins, at least for the moment. You franchise tagged him. He's going to be on the team for the 2024 season. And then after that, we'll have to wait and see. But this is big news for the Bengals because he is a solid receiver and he's a big weapon on this team. And they're going to need him because this Bengals team has high expectations. And if Joe Burrow is healthy, they should go out there and they're going to have a good season and they're going to make the playoffs and they're going to give teams problems. And it's going to be tough because you got to knock off the team that had home field advantage last year, and that's the Ravens. They're not going anywhere. I look at them with a healthy Joe Burrow as a team that's better than the other two teams in their division, in the Steelers and the Browns, because those teams have question marks at quarterback. Deshaun Watson's coming off of an injury, and, we got to see how Russell Wilson is playing quarterback for the Steelers. But I've talked about that a bunch of times. So, yeah, it is going to be interesting. But I think it's going to be between the Ravens and the Bengals. And that doesn't mean that the Bengals don't have question marks at quarterback. Because, yeah, Joe Burrow's coming off of an injury. And there's a little bit of concern. But I think he'll go out there and he's going to have a good year. And if he does, he's one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL when he's healthy. So, I expect him to go out there and have a good year with the weapons that they have. I did mention the running back position. That is something that I'm curious to see how that plays out. Because Zach Moss, he was productive for the Colts when Jonathan Taylor was out. And Chase Brown towards the end of the year with the Bengals, yeah, he made some plays for them. So I'm curious to see how that duo is going to work out for the Bengals. But with the Bengals and the weapons that they have, throwing the football, that's what they're going to do the majority of the time. You're hoping that they can run run the football effectively, because that's a plus. So, and they also do have Mike Gesicki as well, who's a good tight end. With the Patriots, I don't really think that was a good fit, because they had Hunter Henry already, and just that offense just was not very good. Now you step into a good situation where, yeah, you got a team that loves to throw the football. They got weapons. They got very good pass catchers, and I think Gesicki could fit in well there. So, but back to T. Higgins though. This is big, and for the short term, for 2024, this is good for the Bengals. Long term, we'll see how they address now, whether T. Higgins is going to be moved off of, or we'll find out. But at least for right now, the Bengals have T. Higgins for 2024, and that's huge. Because, if they had to trade him before this season, that hurts. Because I guess in next year's draft, you bring in another receiver on a rookie deal. They got some other young guys as well besides Burton. But, yeah, at least you hold off a decision on what you're going to do with him for the time being, and you go from there. But that's just my opinion on it. But at least we finally got some T. Higgins news. Whether he was going to get traded. I didn't think he was going to get traded before the season. I think he was going to stick around. But at least we got news on that. So, and then after 2024, he's probably going to go elsewhere. So, but let me know what you guys think about T. Higgins signing the franchise tag. What kind of season do you think he's going to have? Still put up good numbers at times with Jake Browning at quarterback as well. The Bengals, he was injured last year, I believe. Burrow, of course, got hurt. The Bengals are looking to have a healthy 2024 season. And if they do, they're going to be one of the best teams, or at least one of the best offenses in the NFL. Like I said, they're going to be battling it out with the Ravens for the top of the division, in my opinion. So with that being said, we're going to take our first break of the show. And when we come back, we will discuss the Jets' schedule for 2024. I'll go over that, give you my early win-loss predictions for them, and that is what we will do when we come back from our first break of the show. So, with that being said, stick around, and we'll be right back here on the GSMC Football Podcast.
I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I wanna be the greatest. Everybody on the fake shit. I look around and feel like everybody is the fakest. I make this every day and I'm impatient, hoping one day I blow up from the basement. Statement, the top is so vacant. I don't hear shit that I think is amazing. Waiting for my day when I'm playing sold out shows for 1,000 faces. Hey, give me that crown, get in my way and to be put down. It ain't your place, all this my town. If I want that shit, then I'll get it right now. I'm losing it, the noose it fits. I'm losing shit, a stupid myth. You choose to live or choose to dip. You choose to fight or lose your grip and lose a gift. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind?
All right, and we are back here on the GSMC Football Podcast. And for the second part of the show, we are going to break down the Jets' schedule for 2024, and I'll give you my early win-loss predictions for them. And also, I just wanted to mention that the franchise tag for T. Higgins, it was signed for $21.8 million. So I just wanted to bring that up as well. We just got off of talking about that. So, yeah, let's get into the Jets' schedule. So the Jets, they finished 7-10 last season. So I think back-to-back 7-10 seasons. And obviously when they got Aaron Rodgers, they were hoping for better things, but that unfortunately was not the case when he went down after 4 plays against the Bills on Monday night last season. So this is take 2 for the Jets with Aaron Rodgers. And there's a lot of Aaron Rodgers stuff going on, of course, with him not being at minicamp. And you have people that are outraged about this. And then you have people that are saying it's not a big deal. I was in the camp that said it's not a big deal, but I do understand from the people that do think it's a big deal. I understand it from that perspective. But I don't know. Maybe it's just, you know what it is? It's because I'm not a Jet fan. If I was a Jet fan, then I'd probably say things differently. But maybe that's it. But, yeah, so this is the Jets' schedule. And I'll be honest, I do feel like I don't really think it's that brutal of a schedule. But it's really going to come down to is the health of Aaron Rodgers. Because if he's not healthy, well, this team is not going to do anything this year. Now, I am of the mindset, and I've said this for months now, that Aaron Rodgers is going to stay healthy and this Jets team is going to have a good season. But it is one of those things where I think I used like an analogy of like it's like you got a storm coming or a tornado or something coming and you're running away from it. Well, I'm running towards it. I'm running towards that storm. I'm running towards that big wave. I'm running towards that monster that we're supposed to be running away from. Because, yeah, we could sit here and say, well, the Jets can have a good year. Look at the talent that they have. But there's other factors. You know, there's health and then there's coaching. I think those are the 2 biggest things. And the Jets' coaching situation is not great. Robert Saleh, in my opinion, he's not the guy. I think he's a great defensive-minded defensive-minded coach, but as a head coach, there's a lot left to be desired. But let's get into the schedule, though. So they start off the season at the 49ers. And I've talked about this game when I went over the Monday night schedule because, you know, last year the Jets started on a Monday night. And Leonard Floyd, who was on the Bills, who tackled Aaron Rodgers, is on the 49ers right now. Was on the Bills last year, now is on the 49ers. So, yeah, a little nervous about this game for Aaron Rodgers. They're throwing him right in. And I think this can be a close game, but I am going to lean towards the 49ers and say they win this game. So the Jets are going to start off the season 0-1. But then I feel like the schedule softens up. They take on the Titans, and that's another road game. So back-to-back road games to start the year. I think the Jets can win that game, get themselves back on track. I'm curious to see how Will Levis is going to be now with some new offensive weapons that he has in year 2, new system. But I think the Jets and their defense and Aaron Rodgers, I think that they'll win this game and they'll even it up at 1-1. Then you take on the Patriots. Now, this is not Bill Belichick's Patriots. This is now Gerard Mayo's Patriots. And most likely, I don't know, at least what I'm seeing, Jacoby Brissett's going to be the starter. Now, I could be wrong. Maybe Drake May really impresses everybody and he ends up being the starter. But I think either way, with Brissett or Drake May, I think the Jets should win. Now, if you remember last year, late in the season, Jacoby Brissett came in for Sam Howell with the Commanders, and they almost came back and they beat the Jets because the Jets were, up by a lot. And then the Commanders made a quarterback change, and they actually, I think they were winning at one point, the Commanders, if I'm not mistaken. But the Jets still ended up winning the game. But, yeah, Jacoby Brissett could be starting. That could give the Jets problems. I don't know. But I think the Jets should win this game and get themselves to 2-1. Then they take on a Broncos team that I just don't think is going to be very good this year. You know, I don't know who's going to be the starting quarterback. I think it's either going to be Jarrett Stidham or Bo Nix. I don't really think Zach Wilson is going to have a shot of being the starter. I mean, I know Sean Payton has spoken positively about him, but I don't think he's going to be the starter. I think it's probably going to be Stidham, and then maybe Bo Nix ends up starting later in the year. But either way, I think the Jets should win this game. So they win that. They go to 3-1. Then they take on the Vikings. Now, this is an international game. They'll be overseas for this game. Now, it's either going to be Sam Darnold or it's going to be J.J. McCarthy. It seems like Sam Darnold has the hold on the starting job. So we'll get to see Sam Darnold go up against his former team once again. I think the Jets should win this game, in my opinion. But who knows? But I'll say the Jets do get this game. So now the Jets are 4-1, looking good. And then they take on the Bills week 6. I think this game, if I'm not mistaken, this is also a Monday night game as well. Now, I think the Jets will at least split with the Bills. I'm not going to sit here and say one team is going to sweep the other, because that hasn't happened the last couple of years. The Jets have won the games at home against the Bills, and the Bills have won in Buffalo against the Jets the last couple of years. So I'm going to say that they split once again. I think the Jets win here. The Jets defense does give Josh Allen problems, and they gave a lot of quarterbacks problems last year. So I'm going to say that the Jets win this game here. And you're looking at 5-1 now. And you're probably sitting there going, yeah, that's not going to happen. And maybe it doesn't. Maybe they're 4-2 at this point. But I don't know. That's just my opinion. So then they go to the Steelers. Now, this is a tough game. I think this is, if I'm not mistaken, this is a Sunday night game. Yeah, because I don't have the times listed. But, yeah, I mean, this could be a tough game here. Steelers got a good defense. It's on the road. I mean, it all depends on, how Russell Wilson plays too. I mean, maybe they switch to Justin Fields at this point. I'm going to say the Jets lose this game. So then they drop to 5-2. Because I think at some point they got to lose a game. But then they take on the Patriots again. I just don't think the Patriots are going to be very good. I think the Jets should win once again. So I think they get back on track and win that game. Now, the Texans game, that's an interesting game. That is an interesting game. Because if you remember, last year, the Jets won, I think, 30-6 against them with Zach Wilson. Now, I think, C.J. Stroud also lost some weapons, and I think he actually got hurt in that game as well. So this could be an exciting game. It's a toss-up for me. I'm gonna, I'm gonna say the Jets, they win this game. I'm gonna say, because they're at home, good defense. They gave Stroud problems last year. I mean, it's a new year, but I think the Jets can win this game. But that's a toss up for me. Cardinals with Kyler Murray. I think the Jets should also win that game. I mean, they're traveling across country, but I think they should win that. The Colts game is interesting as well. Another interesting game with Anthony Richardson coming in. But I think I'm going to take the Jets in that one. Then you got an old friend in Geno Smith coming in. But I think the Jets should win. I got them splitting with the Dolphins. So that's another loss. So I got them losing to the Steelers, the Niners, the Bills once, the Dolphins once. So that's 4 losses there. The Jaguars in Jacksonville. I mean, Aaron Rodgers doesn't play. I mean, yeah, that's actually back-to-back games in Florida. Aaron Rodgers actually doesn't play well in Florida. I think they should. I mean, the Jags team, Trying to bounce back from last year. I'm going to say the Jets win. Then the Rams come in. Got two old NFC North foes going at it. You know what? I'm going to say the Jets lose that one. Lose to the Bills, like I said, because they're going to split with the Bills, in my opinion. And then I said they'd split with the Dolphins. So I'm going to say, I 12 wins, I got them at. I think that's fair. Now, this all depends on the health of Aaron Rodgers. He's got to be healthy. If he's not healthy, then this doesn't mean anything. And I know I'm going to have to bring up, in my production meeting in a little over an hour, about an hour, what kind of record I gave him. 12-5. But I had them ranked as the number one team in the division. So we'll see how it goes. Like I said, I am going towards that storm, that giant monster, which is the Jets, and there could be destruction where it just does not pan out. But we'll see. I'm going to say 12. I'm going to say 12 wins because I had the Bills and the Dolphins at around 10 and 11. So, but that's if everything goes well. And, they improve the offensive line. They still have a very good defense. They got to figure out what's going on with Hassan Reddick and get that under control and get him to show up because they traded for him to be Bryce Huff's replacement, and he's not there. So, we'll have to see. But that's what I got the Jets at. 12-5. Come at me, if you don't agree with that. But I get it. I'm taking a risk with it, but it's just I feel like they have too much talent. I feel like that talent with Aaron Rodgers is going to block out some of the weaknesses they may have, particularly with the coaching staff. So, we'll see. But we're going to take our next... Well, before we take our next break, I feel like I always do that, but we got to do this. Before we go into our next break, just want to remind you guys once again, tip or donate and get your comments recognized. Make sure to go to the following link. That is GSMCpodcast.net. Again, that really helps the show, makes the show more interactive between myself, the host, and you guys, the viewers. Again, that is GSMCpodcast.net. And as always, it is displayed on the ticker at the bottom of the show segment down below. So I accidentally clicked on it, but when we come back from our next break, we'll talk about Tank Dell and his comments on the Houston Texans and their season, what kind of season they're going to have, and also just how they feel like they're going to be, hunted by other teams. That they got a target on their back, as he said. So with that being said, stick around, and we'll be right back here on the GSMC Football Podcast.
Looking for your daily fix of sports talk without having to pay for it? GSMC Sports Network is available on YouTube. Just search GSMC Sports Network. Get your fix of daily sports talk shows on YouTube, absolutely free. NFL, college football, NBA, MLB, MMA, UFC, fantasy football, and so much more. GSMC Sports Network has shows running all day long, with new sports shows starting every 2 hours. Just like on your favorite cable sports channel, except GSMC Sports Network is absolutely free. Just search GSMC Sports Network on YouTube to catch one of your new favorite shows, like the GSMC College Football Podcast, Chip Shot Football Podcast, Hoops and Heels Women's Sports Podcast, GSMC Basketball Podcast, and so many more. Check it out for yourself. GSMC Sports Network, now available on YouTube absolutely free. Search GSMC Sports Network on YouTube right now.
All right, and we are back here on the GSMC Football Podcast. And for the third part of the show, we're going to talk about Tank Dell, some comments on the Texans' upcoming season. So let's get into that. So he talked about how they're ready. He said, we're all excited. We know we have a target on our back. We got a lot of things we want to accomplish. Super Bowl, playoffs, things like that. So we're ready to go to work. He also said, I'm way better. I feel like I'm way better than I was last year at this time. A little bit of experience I got before I got injured. I already know the playbook, so I don't have to put too much stress on that. I'm just working every day. I know I'm ready because he had, he's recovering from a gunshot wound. And thankfully everything's all right and he's, back and he's ready to go. But yeah, that was a scary thing that happened to him in the offseason. But also, he's also recovering. Now, on top of that, I forgot, the other thing too was fractured fibula from last year too. They were without him, for the playoffs. So thankfully everything's all right and he's ready to go. But yeah, that was a scary situation. So, but yeah, the Texans have quite the trio when it comes to their receiving room. You got him, you got Stephon Diggs, and you got Nico Collins. And then also you have Noah Brown as well, who stepped up last year. And I think they still have Robert Woods as well. Because C.J. Stroud said, we got 5 number ones. I don't know about that, but you got depth. You got depth, and you got a solid trio that you're going to be throwing to. Now, Tank Dell talks about how, the Texans are a team that's going to have a target on their back, and I don't know if I necessarily would go that far. I feel like they got to show that this is going to work with, now Stephon Diggs being in the fold and now these rising expectations. Because I think the team that's really got the target on their back is the Kansas City Chiefs. That's the team that's got the target on their back. And that's the team that they have to go after. You got to take them down. Because, the Texans, they got, like I said, rising expectations. And, they overperformed last year. They outperformed their expectations from last year because last year nobody really expected them to be that good. But C.J. Stroud played really well. DeMeco Ryans looks like he's the right guy as the head coach. They exceeded expectations. Now it's a step up. They even won a playoff game last year. Now it's like, okay, you got to go further. But I don't think I'm going to sit here and say they're the ones that have the target on their back. The Chiefs do. And you got to go out there and beat that team. And they will play them later in the year, I think in Arrowhead. And that's the Saturday before Christmas. And that game, and I'm really excited for that game. But I don't think they're the ones that have a target. I guess because of just, the addition of Stephon Diggs and some of the other moves that they made as well. I mean, they added Danielle Hunter to the defensive line. Because them and the Vikings, they basically traded, kind of similar to, I mean, they signed their guys, but it's kind of similar to what happened with like the Eagles and the Jets, where the Eagles got Bryce Huff and the Jets got Hassan Reddick. Now the Jets had to trade for Hassan Reddick, whereas the Vikings and the Texans, they kind of just signed their own guys. The Texans signed Danielle Hunter, and the Vikings signed Jonathan Grenard. So, but yeah, I mean, I get what he's saying, but I don't agree that they're not good. They're not the hunter. They're not the hunt. They're not going to be hunted. They're still hunters, in my opinion, and they got to go out there, and now you got to go further in the playoffs. You made it to the divisional round, and you lost twice to the Ravens last year. In week 1, and then you started off with a loss to the Ravens, and then you ended off your season with a loss to the Ravens. So, now they got to go out there and prove that they can go further, and I think they can. But you got a healthy Joe Burrow coming back. You still got the Ravens there. You got the Chiefs. You got the teams in the AFC East as well. The Bills, the Dolphins, the Jets. If we just talked about the Jets. There's a lot. This AFC, I mean, how many times am I going to bring it up? How jam-packed it is. There's a lot of teams that are going to be in the mix. Now, I think the Texans, they're the favorites to win their division. I think they're going to win that, so they're not going to have to deal with that logjam when it comes to the wild card spots. But, who knows? Teams in your own division are going to be better. So, but I think they should win their division. That's my opinion. And I think most people would agree with that. So, yeah, it is going to be a interesting year, and I expect C.J. Stroud to go out there and have a better year. I mean, another year with these guys. It's going to be a lot of fun. It's going to be a fun team to watch in 2024, and I don't know who do they open up against, because we'll be doing their schedule at some point. Because tomorrow we'll be doing the Patriots schedule. Because I think I'll be doing the AFC South next, or no, actually no, I'll be doing the AFC North next, and then I'll be doing the South. Because I go in this particular order. I go the Eastern Division, then the North, the South, and then I did the West. So I'm just going to continue in that order, just like what I did with the NFC. So the Texans, they will be opening up against the Colts. So a divisional opponent right off the bat. And, the Texans, they ended the Colts season last year. That Week 18 matchup, which was a good game. So, yeah, we'll get to see Stephon Diggs for the first time in we've seen him in a Texans jersey, in practice and for media day, but this is now, with games going on. So, yeah, they are going to be a fun team to watch. They really are, and we'll see how it goes. But yeah, I mean that's pretty much my thoughts on the Texans. I mean, like I said, I've said all along they have been, they've been a topic of conversation when it comes to certain teams, just because, again, the moves that they've made. And, yeah, we'll see how they respond. I think with the expectations that they now have, I don't think this is going to be a team that's going to shy away from it. I think when you hear C.J. Stroud and how he speaks about things, it doesn't seem like he's a guy that's fazed by the big moment. And, yeah, I mean, the Ravens really brought it to them in the playoffs. I mean, it was a struggle because they didn't have an offensive touchdown. The only one was, I think it was Steven Sims, right? He ran back the punt return for the touchdown, and that made it 10-10. But other than that, the Texans really just could not get anything going offensively in that game. And, the Ravens, until the Chiefs knocked them off, the Ravens were looked at as, the best team in the AFC. And, many people thought they were going to take down the Chiefs, but that ended up not happening. But, yeah, it was a tough game. The Ravens' defense was solid all year, and the Texans just couldn't get anything going. So now it's up to them this year to go out there and, beat these teams that are going to be in your way to get to a Super Bowl. They're going to face the Ravens again at some point. They're going to take on the Chiefs. Actually, I think they take on the Chiefs and the Ravens back-to-back weeks, because the teams that play on Christmas will be playing on the Saturday before Christmas. So the Ravens will be playing the Steelers. The Texans will be taking on the Chiefs. And then Texans got to take on the Ravens. So those are going to be two big games for the Texans. And they could lose those games. They could lose both. But I think the one against the Ravens is a home game. So they could lose both of those games. They can win one and lose one, or they can win both. I mean, I'd probably lean towards either they're going to win one and lose one, or they might lose both. But we'll see. We'll see. I mean, that's way down the line. That's in the winter, so I don't want to, jump to any conclusions yet. But yeah, that could be a big 2-game stretch right there for them. Those games could decide who gets the top seed in the AFC. So. But yeah, I mean that's pretty much it on the Texans. Like I said, they are going to be a very good team this year. I'm very high on them, but I don't look at them like, as Tank Dell said, where they feel like they got a target on their back. I don't think they do. I don't think there's really been a lot of chirping going on with the Texans. Like, I don't know. At least that's just for me. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong because I'm not very close to the situation, but I don't feel like they've been kind of like, talking a lot about it. Because, a lot of times where you have team like with the Eagles, when I think when Vince Young said this is like the dream team, when it was him and they had Michael Vick, LaShawn McCoy, Deshaun Jackson, and that team, 2011 was a mess for the Eagles. They were not good. I feel like that I can understand, but I feel like the Texans, they haven't really been talking. But I don't know. That's just me. So, because if you start talking, yeah, then teams are going to be like, all right, well, we need to, get these guys to be quiet and just, knock them down. But yeah, I feel like we haven't really heard about that. I feel like we haven't heard the Texans really talk like that. I don't know. That's just me. So, yeah, that's it with this topic. Let me know what you guys think about the Texans. What Tank Dell had to say. What kind of season do you think the Texans are going to end up having? I think a lot of us do agree that they will be very good. So we're going to take our next break. When we come back, we'll talk about T.J.Watt. Some of his comments just talking about, the future. And eventually get to that point where, yeah, he's going to retire. So we will get into that when we come back from our next break. So, with that being said, stick around, and we'll be right back here on the GSMC Football Podcast.
For the best and latest podcasts available anywhere, go to the podcast app on your cell phone and type in GSMC to access free content-rich podcasts on health and wellness, book reviews, sports, entertainment, relationships, social media, movies, technology, finance, and even weird news. Subscribe and download the GSMC Podcast Network's family of shows, available everywhere podcasts are found.
All right, and we are back here on the GSMC Football Podcast. And for the fourth part of the show, we are going to talk about T.J.Watt and him just kind of talking about his future, talking about retirement. Now, when I say that, that does not mean that he's retiring, after this year. But he just, had some recent comments about it. And I just wanted to get into it and kind of, just give my thoughts on it. So this is what he had to say, and this is via The Athletic. He said, for me, it's all about no playoff wins. I'm trying to do anything I can do. We have so much turnover year to year and so many new guys that is trying to learn as much as possible coming from guys from other organizations that have done it and won championships since being in the league. I'm going to do whatever is possible to win. It's about not taking any day for granted, and when it comes down to executing and working, putting everything aside and getting it done. He also said, I don't know if I want to play forever, but who knows? It's hard to say. JJ always said he didn't want to play super long. Then things happened, and he ended up playing longer. I won't know until that moment comes. I feel great right now, so I'm kind of just living in the moment. I don't have forever to play. I have always approached the game as right now, and I've never taken it for granted, and that hasn't changed at all. So, yeah, I mean, I like what he said a lot. He does put things into perspective. He's not going to be around forever. And I think you kind of just play it by ear, and, how you're feeling. Because, yeah, this game does take a lot out of you. Now, when I say that, that doesn't mean that, I know exactly what players are going through. But, you could definitely tell. The wear and tear. I talked about Travis Kelce and him, talking about retirement, and having similar comments to this, where it's like, yeah, just gonna, keep playing and, see what happens. He's like, what did Travis Kelce said? He said, bring on the wear and tear. Yeah, it's, the game's gonna do that to you. And at some point, the wear and tear is gonna be too much, or, you can't, do what you're accustomed to doing. You can't play at a high level. And yeah, eventually you're gonna call it quits. You don't decide when you're done. it's Father Time does. Father Time is undefeated, as cliche as that sounds, because how many times do you hear that? But yeah, I mean, the guys we're seeing now are not going to play forever. And when I was younger, watching guys like Peyton Manning and and of course, I mean Tom Brady. It's weird not seeing him play now, and now him presenting the MVP to the winner of the UFL championship, because that was yesterday. I think the Birmingham Stallions took that, so it was weird just seeing him present the MVP trophy to the winning team there. But yeah, you just thought like these guys were going to play forever, and then as you get older, and these guys start to retire. I mean, you see that in football, in baseball. The guys that I grew up watching. Basketball, I mean, most of the guys that I've seen growing up, like, they're still playing. LeBron James, Kevin Durant, like all those guys, like that core is still like around. But yeah, LeBron's gonna be 40. He's talking about retirement. He's eventually gonna retire. So like that group is eventually going to be out. So it's really weird, because you just think like these guys are going to play forever when they're really not. And T.J.Watt has been a great player since he's come into the league. He's been in the league since 2017, and he's a guy that could just take over a game. And it's just unfortunate that the Steelers, and I've said this many times, just how long it's been. I mean, I saw a TikTok video of, what the Steelers have done in the playoffs, the last few times that they've been there. I mean, it all goes back to when they lost to the Patriots in the AFC Championship game back in, the 2016-2017 season. Then they lost to Blake Bortles and the Jaguars, missed the playoffs for a couple years. They lost to the Browns. They lost to the Chiefs, and then most recently they lost to the Bills. And, it's like, when is that day going to come when this team is going to make the playoffs? I mean, T.J.Watt, he did score a defensive touchdown in the playoffs against the Chiefs, and that put them up 7-0, and he thought, okay, maybe let's see what the Steelers could do here. But nothing happened after that. The Chiefs took over that game. Because I was going to say, it's unfortunate that T.J. Watt, he can only do so much because he plays defense. But, I mean, he could take over a game. I mean, is more than just one defensive touchdown. I mean, he's just unbelievable. He's arguably the best defensive player in the game. But, again, you can only do so much. You need your offense to, start putting up points here. But yeah, it's just, I mean, he puts things into perspective. I mean, J.J. Watt, he recently retired. What has it been now? I think this was, what was this? Was this J.J.'s second? This was 2023 was his, no, actually, because when did he retire? He retired at the end of 22, I think, right? Because I know his last, yeah, that sounds about right, I think. So, yeah, I mean, it was J.J. Watt's first full year, retired. And eventually it's going to get to that point when, TJ's going to call it quits. And, but he said, I mean, he feels great. I know he has dealt with a lot of injuries, and, you worry about that. That continues to stack up. And, we had a similar topic about this with Joe Burrow, because he talked about, just dealing with injuries constantly, and how, talking about his football mortality. Eventually, it's like, getting hurt, rehab, work yourself back. Yeah, that's eventually going to, wear on you. And yeah, it's just at some point you're going to say, yeah, this is too much for me. I don't want to do this anymore. And then you call it quits. And we hope that's not the case for Burrow. But yeah, T.J. Watt's dealt with a lot of injuries too. But it doesn't seem like, I mean, at least like, at least the article I had, it didn't seem like, he was of that mindset. Like, yeah, I get hurt a lot, but, he didn't really talk about that. But yeah, I mean, eventually when he does retire, yeah, it's gonna be a sad day. because, yeah, he's been a great player. But, he's still got some time to go. And, he's still in the prime of his career. So, yeah, we don't have to worry about that for a while. But, yeah, when you see players start talking about retirement, like they're more towards the end than they are to the beginning. Now, some people are more towards the end than others. I think T.J.Watt still has some time to go. Like, when we talked about Travis Kelce, Travis Kelce is closer to the end. T.J.Watt, I feel like, is in, the middle. Because, like I said, he's still, in the prime of his career. He'd go out there and he could break the sacks record. He's tied with Michael Strahan right now, but he could go out there and he could have, 23, 24 sacks. And, that would be a defensive player of the year for him, which many people thought he was going to get, and Myles Garrett ended up getting it. But he's still going to have more. He's going to still have opportunities to win that. So, but yeah, that was just something. This was just something I wanted to talk about. Because again, it's just more. It's because we talked about this with Burrow. We talked about this with Kelce. T.J. Watt, another player, just. Well, Burrow didn't really talk about retirement. He just talked about, hey, I've been hurt a lot. Kelce brought up retirement. But, yeah, it's just, again, it's just a reminder that these athletes that we're watching right now, they're not going to be around forever. So you just got to enjoy it while it lasts and live in the moment and not think about the future and just let it ride. Because eventually when these guys all retire, there's going to be a new group that comes in and takes their place, and, there'll be players that we like from that group, and then it's a cycle. But yeah, we just gotta live in the moment, just enjoy, T.J. Watt and him playing, of course, and all the guys that are playing right now, across all sports, because at some point, yeah, they're gonna call it a career, and you're not gonna be able to watch them play every day. But yeah, that's really my thoughts on that. Let me know what you guys think about what T.J. Watt had to say. What kind of season do you think he's gonna have? Listen, it's T.J. Watt. Like I said, still in the prime of his career. I think we're gonna expect big things out of him in the Steelers' defense. It's up to the offense. Let's see what that offense can do now with the new quarterbacks they got. So, now, we're going to take our final break of the show. When we come back, we're going to talk about Sauce Gardner defending Aaron Rodgers, something he tweeted out. And just more talk on Aaron Rodgers missing minicamp. So we'll get into all that when we come back from our final break of the show. So for one final time today, stick around, and we'll be right back here on the GSMC Football Podcast. All right, and we are back here on the GSMC Football Podcast. And for the final part of the show, we're going to talk about Sauce Gardner defending Aaron Rodgers, just kind of more on the Aaron Rodgers situation, just, him missing minicamp. So, yeah, there's been a lot of criticism on him not being there. And like I said, I was in the the group of, hey, I don't think this is that big of a deal. But listening to other people that think it's a big deal, I do understand from that perspective. Now, I know there was one. I know, from listening to podcasts and TV personalities and things like that. I know there was at least one person was like, he doesn't care about the Jets at all. Now, I think that's taking it too extreme. I don't think it's that he doesn't care about the Jets at all. I think pull back a little bit. Maybe, yeah, he doesn't care. Like what some people are saying, maybe he just doesn't look at them as a main priority. And I'm a big Aaron Rodgers fan, and I've said that constantly on the show. Now, I'm a big fan of him when it comes to him playing quarterback. Now, if you want to talk to me about anything, any other opinion that he has that doesn't relate to football, that's a completely different story. But when it comes to playing quarterback, I have loved watching this guy play ever since I started watching football. So, yeah, when it comes to, his views on other things, that's a completely different story. So, I try to split apart Aaron Rodgers, the quarterback, and Aaron Rodgers, just, I guess, the person. I love watching Aaron Rodgers, the quarterback, play football. So, just because I am a fan of him does not mean I'm a fan of everything about Aaron Rodgers. Because once Aaron Rodgers retires, that's it. He's out of my life. So, but yeah, I do agree with maybe he just doesn't view the Jets as a main priority. Because, what frustrates me about Aaron Rodgers, because I always wanted him to, try to surpass Tom Brady and win, as many rings as him. But, as, from year to year, when Rodgers kept losing in the playoffs and Brady kept winning rings, yeah, that made that mountain more steeper and tougher to climb. So at that point, I just at some point I just gave up. I'm like, yeah, Rodgers is never going to catch Brady. Because at one point, Brady had 3 and Rodgers had 1. And it was like, okay, maybe Rodgers could catch up to Brady and then surpass him and become the greatest of all time. Well, that didn't happen because then the Patriots had their second dynasty. And then Brady said, you know what, we've never played in the playoffs before. So let me go to the NFC to play you with the Bucs. And you talked about how, hey, we got to get an NFC Championship game at Lambeau Field. Let me just go to the Bucs, play you in Lambeau Field, beat you, and then beat Patrick Mahomes in the Super Bowl. So, yeah, it wasn't going to happen. But what frustrates me is this. You can love him or hate him, but Tom Brady always wanted to win. That was Tom Brady's main priority, is winning. And doing whatever it took to get to that point. And what's that famous, one of his famous quotes? What's your favorite Super Bowl? The next one. That's the mentality that I want Aaron Rodgers to have. And I just feel like he doesn't have that. I feel like he's not. I think Aaron Rodgers wants to win badly, but I just feel like, or maybe because he doesn't have these quotes that Brady has. But yeah, you never really get that sense with Aaron Rodgers. You just feel like, yeah, he wants to win, but I feel like he doesn't want to win as badly as Tom Brady wanted to win. Now, Tom Brady's, the standard when it comes to winning. And already, Patrick Mahomes has 3 rings. I mean, he became a full-time starter in 2018, and he already passed Aaron Rodgers. He passed Drew Brees. He passed Peyton Manning. He passed all these guys, and he's got more rings than them. And it's frustrating for me because because many people are like, how does Aaron Rodgers only have 1 ring? Well, part of it, I think, is, his outlook on football. I think there's not as much of a drive to win as opposed to, some of these other guys. But you know what? Here's the thing. That, that little rant that I just went on, that's just over the course of Aaron Rodgers' career. Where is he at right now? He's 40 years old, and yeah, he's towards the end. I mean, this could be it for him. This could be his last year. But yeah, maybe it's just, hey, I'm not in the prime of my career anymore. it's just, I don't know. But yeah, he's towards the end, and you know what? He is Aaron Rodgers, so he's able to do these things and skip out. The whole situation though with the Jets, it just doesn't make sense because it's an inexcused absence, but the Jets knew about it and they're okay with it. Now, this is about Sauce Gardner defending Aaron Rodgers, and he said, "You guys are making a big deal because a 15-plus year a Hall of Fame quarterback missed 2 days of practice after being with the team all throughout Phase 1, 2, and 3 of OTAs." And that's where I'm like, yeah, Aaron Rodgers was there for voluntary OTAs. Now, I think if I think maybe he could have, worked around this and said, all right, maybe I'll miss OTAs and then show up for mandatory minicamp, because you showed up for something that was voluntary, but you don't show up for something that's mandatory. Wouldn't you want to try to? I don't know. Again, I'm not in the mind of an Aaron Rodgers. I don't know, and we don't know what this event that he had to go to. We don't know what it is. I mean, I think at some point we'll find out. I think it might have been. I don't know. I heard something that it was a vacation. I don't know. I don't want to speculate, but I do understand from a Jet fan perspective that you're just outraged about it. That you just think, oh, he doesn't care. But yeah, I mean, I went off on that rant that I just feel like I do agree that he might not view the Jets as a main priority, and that maybe his drive to win is not, it's not like how some other players' drive to win is. But yeah, I mean, he's going to come back. We're in June. Now, if this trickles into the season and he's not playing well, yeah, that's a problem. But I think for right now, for some people, just need to relax, right? What did he said this 10 years ago, RELAX, relax. We're going to be okay. That's what he said. And then what happened? The Packers went to the NFC Championship game and, the Seahawks beat them. But it's because of the onside kick that that kind of led to the Packers losing. Can't believe that was 10 years ago. Well, technically it happened in 2015, but it was the 2014-2015 season. So next year it'll be 10 years. And the NFL Instagram is going to post a 10-year reminder of that. But yeah, it's just what could have been with Aaron Rodgers, because he could have had more rings. I think it's just now I don't want to say he's it's not completely he's completely out of being blamed, because he does have it. Some of the blame does fall on him. But yeah, it's just unfortunate that he wasn't able to win. I mean, could he go out there and win this year? Yeah, but I feel like I just don't think it's going to happen. Because the most recent time that he was in the playoffs, he did not play well. He just didn't. You put up 10 points at home against the 49ers, and they didn't even score an offensive touchdown in that game. So it just, I mean, we'll see. But it's just, I mean, the AFC's loaded, and, I mean, could the Jets go out there and have a good season? Yeah, I think they will. But, I mean, I don't know. I don't know how far they're going to go if they do make the playoffs. So, but you know what? It's with Aaron Rodgers, and they're using their words against him, because he talked about how they got to get rid of all the BS and the distractions, and yeah, he is creating a distraction, whether the Jets think it's a big deal or not. Now, because the outside world, they view it as a distraction, but the Jets, they could sit there and say it's not. I don't know. But yeah, it's, you got teammates have his back, but, I mean, also, yeah, the guy only played 4 snaps. He's got to do something for this team. I do agree with that. And I think he will. But, it's just he's got to go out there and do something for this team, because, I mean, yeah, he said all the right things, when he first got there, and it's been great, but it was great, and then he got hurt, and it's just, what people say, same old Jets. But let's hope it's not same old Jets. So, but that's just my opinion on it. I mean, I could talk about this is another topic I can go on for hours about it, but yeah, it's just that there's a lot of things. There's a lot of criticisms with the head coach and how he's handling it, and I mean, yeah, you're gonna defend your quarterback. That's your quarterback. What are you gonna bash him and say, yeah, he should be here? I mean, I guess you could, but then you're causing problems. But I think more people are looking towards the coach to say that hey, no, you should be here. This is mandatory, but it's not the case. So, yes, but like I said, I could talk about this Aaron Rodgers stuff for hours, but we don't really have the time for it. So, yeah, I'm gonna wrap it up here. Put a bow on the show for today. Thank you guys for tuning in. We'll be back again tomorrow, 10:30 a.m. Eastern time. Make sure to check out all the other shows on the network. Got the NBA Finals again tonight. The Mavericks were able to at least push it to another game, as well as the Oilers too in the Stanley Cup Final. So at least we didn't get clean sweeps, but I think that those series are still over in my opinion. So, but yeah, make sure to check out all the other shows, and yeah, that is pretty much it for the show for today. Again, thank you guys for tuning in. We'll be back again tomorrow, same time. And until then, I'm Kenneth Grunfelder signing off from the GSMC Football Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. Have a good day, and I will talk to you guys tomorrow. Take care.
Let's go. I wake up to a little bit of drool on my pillow, feel like it's gonna be a bad day. Yeah, I'm tired of shit, and the coffee ain't hit yet, damn.